Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
On this Ash Wednesday, new legal troubles for the Roman Catholic Diocese of San Diego. Thanks for joining us. I'm John Carroll, in for Maya Trabulsi. A new lawsuit claims the diocese has committed real estate fraud to avoid paying claims for child sexual abuse. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer has the story.
Less than 2 weeks after the Diocese of San Diego said it may have to file for bankruptcy, it's now the target of a lawsuit regarding its finances and properties.
In that lawsuit, we are alleging that the diocese fraudulently transferred 291 properties to separate parish corporations, dummy corporations, and properties that are worth over $400 million.
Attorney Erwin Zalkin says the diocese did that to avoid paying fair compensation to victims of childhood sexual abuse. The diocese is facing roughly 400 of those types of claims, and Zalkin's firm represents about 120 clients. Zalkin says this new lawsuit is critically important if the diocese does file for bankruptcy.
It's all about what assets the diocese has, what insurance coverage they have, what's available to them as a financial resource to compensate the victims.
The 480-page lawsuit alleges that in September of 2019, after a bill extended the statute of limitations of child abuse claims, the diocese fraudulently transferred assets to 93 separate parish corporations. Zalkin says this lawsuit seeks to reverse those transfers.
This diocese and its parishes have engaged in a conspiratorial enterprise to defraud child abuse victims and to deny them the justice they deserve.
The news coincides with the arrival of Lent this year and has created some unease for the local Catholic faithful. Matthew Savino was at Mission San Diego to attend Mass for Ash Wednesday. He told KPBS that even with the difficult times for the diocese, he's staying focused on his religion.
I'm just here for my faith and just stick to God, so I'm not going to let that really interfere with what's going on.
The Diocese of San Diego is pushing back on the claims in the new suit. In a statement, they said that under canon law, assets of each parish are separate and independent of the diocese, and that more than a decade ago, it started formalizing the legal status of the parishes and their assets under civil law. The diocese also says that move came before the bill to extend the time frame for filing sexual abuse suits. Diocese spokesperson Kevin Eckery now says they should have a decision on whether or not they will file for bankruptcy by midsummer. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Now to the storm making its way through San Diego County. High winds arrived today, bringing down trees and knocking out power. A large tree fell onto a Bay Park apartment building early this morning, smashing into several units, crushing parked cars, and bringing down power lines. No one was hurt. Most residents were allowed to return to their homes, but one family's apartment sustained too much damage. In Del Mar, another large tree fell onto a couple's home.
There was a loud cracking noise as well. It woke us up, and that's when we realized there was glass on the floor and on the bed.
The couple says when they got up to look around, they saw a tree had crashed through the window and roof into their living room. They're hoping to get the tree removed and repairs done before more rain moves in. A weather warning was issued for San Diego International Airport. It expired just moments ago. Airport officials say they're closely monitoring visibility and wind speeds to determine if they need to switch the direction of the landing and takeoff patterns. And it's not just here in San Diego. As Mike Valerio shows us, winter weather alerts are now in effect across a huge stretch of the country.
Flagstaff, Arizona, looking more like Fairbanks, Alaska. Colorful language welcoming the latest cold coast-to-coast winter storm.
Eastbound 6200 south off-ramp.
A blizzard on I-215 in Utah, leaving drivers stranded. Plows in overdrive. But in terms of snowfall, the upper Midwest is expected to bear the brunt of the storm through Thursday.
Minnesotans don't panic and we don't overreact, but we also understand that weather can be dangerous.
The Twin Cities potentially getting more than 2 feet, what could be the most snow in 30 years. Ice accumulation is expected from Iowa to Michigan and all the way out to Boston. More than 1,200 flights are already canceled across the U.S., according to FlightAware. The misery focused in Minneapolis, Denver, and Detroit.
Hey guys, you guys have a rope?
In California, high winds knocking a huge tree onto the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge. The Golden State getting ready for several feet of snow by Saturday, including an extremely rare blizzard warning beginning Friday morning, issued for Southern California mountains across Ventura and Los Angeles counties. Mike Valerio, KPBS News.
This may only be the beginning of the stormy weather here in San Diego County. We'll have more in your full forecast coming up. Next week, state and local COVID state of emergency orders will be lifted. Put in place nearly 3 years ago, officials say the orders helped save lives and protect the economy. Emergency orders also allowed hospitals to deal with high patient admissions. Dr. Eric Topol from the Scripps Research Translational Institute says he isn't forecasting major changes. Testing and vaccination sites have been gradually closing, but Topol says COVID hasn't completely gone away.
There's still circulating virus here, so people shouldn't just let their guard down, but overall it's a very favorable situation.
A statement from the California Association of Health Plans says COVID-19 coverage won't change until 6 months after the federal emergency order ends in May. President Biden is proposing a new set of rules that would limit access to asylum. KPBS border reporter Gustavo Solis spoke with advocates who say the proposed rules are very similar to Trump-era policies that Biden promised to eliminate.
It is a resurrection of the Trump administration's policies. It is an asylum ban.
That's Blaine Bookey, legal director with the Center for Gender and Refugee Studies. She's critical of Biden's proposed policy. It would make virtually everybody who crosses the border illegally ineligible for asylum. It would also apply to people who didn't ask for asylum in a country that they traveled to before reaching the southern border. The proposed policy is very similar to President Donald Trump's so-called asylum transit ban. Bookey says it's not very popular.
Yeah, it's pretty much, universally rejected by advocates who are, standing at the ready to welcome people.
White House officials have pushed back on the Trump-era comparisons. The Biden administration has expanded legal pathways into the U.S. Aaron Reichlin-Melnick is policy director for the American Immigration Council. He says the Trump comparison is fair game.
The Biden administration has strongly rejected the comparisons between this new rule and the Trump asylum transit ban. But the reality is if the Trump ban applied to 99% of people, this is probably going to apply to 70 to 80% of people.
The ACLU has already said it will fight the new policy in court. Reichlin-Melnick says that the Biden administration is building on Trump-era asylum policies. These policies change long-standing legal precedent that allow anybody to seek asylum in the U.S., regardless of how they entered the country.
For the administration to say, oh, we want to encourage people to go through these lawful pathways is hypocritical because asylum is legal regardless of how you enter the United States. And it is a lawful pathway to ask for asylum after you've turned yourself into the Border Patrol.
The Biden ban is scheduled to go into effect May 11th, the same day that the COVID public health emergency is set to expire. And that timing is very important, because once the public health emergency is gone, border officials will no longer be able to use it to turn migrants away from the border. Advocates believe that the new asylum rules are meant to replace the public health ban on migrants.
We're just shoving people to die or be harmed somewhere else, just not on our doorstep. So it's not solving the problem in any way.
Bookey says the administration only seems to care about one metric: lowering the number of people who come to the southern border. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
Thousands of families were separated during the United States' chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021. Today, many are still waiting to be reunited with their loved ones. Natasha Chen caught up with one family now living in California.
A daily video call is the only way Ahmad Roman can connect with his wife and daughter in Kabul.
It's my daughter.
We're keeping his wife and daughter's faces concealed for their safety. They're in the dark with electricity for only a few hours each day when they could have been here in this small light-filled apartment in California. Their family's sudden separation happened at the Kabul airport during the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. And after a year and a half, Roman is no closer to getting his wife and daughter here.
Someone asked me about that days. My hands just shake.
In mid-August 2021, the family and their relatives headed to the airport, knowing their safety would be at risk under Taliban rule. But when they boarded the crowded cargo planes, they suddenly could not find their older son, Uzair. His parents came out of the plane searching for him amidst the chaos.
Just 1,000 people on the ground.
They finally realized Uzair was already with another relative on a different plane. But by that point, his mother and sister had been pushed beyond the airport gates.
I cry a lot to them that please let me go inside my kids, my family inside the plane, but they didn't let me.
Roman waited and was one of the last to board his plane. He is now a single parent, raising Uzair and little Rahman, who has now spent half of his young life in the U.S.
Asking Rahman, who's she? She told me it's mom. But I know Rahman don't know what's mom meaning.
Roman's wife said the Taliban requires male supervision for her to go anywhere, including the store, and their daughter may not be able to continue school.
I'm just worried about my daughter's future.
It wasn't until January when the U.S. State Department published a form for humanitarian parolees like Roman to apply for reunification assistance. Several advocacy groups across the U.S. each tell CNN they're working with dozens of families in the same situation, with one group, Women for Afghan Women, trying to help 400 separated families.
When I see my kids on camera, but I cannot touch them, it's so difficult for me.
We asked the State Department how many Afghan families are still waiting for reunification, but their press office says the number is fluid and that they have, quote, already resettled thousands of Afghans, reunited families, and welcomed them into our communities across the country.
You have filled out every form that you could, but nobody's telling you how long this could take.
Actually, no one told me we can help you. They told me we don't have any answer for this.
He says a team at the State Department is in contact with him to try to help, but both he and his lawyer say there's no information about next steps.
We have one thing that make me strong, that's hope.
Bye-bye, Papa.
Natasha Chen reporting. The situation is complicated by the fact that there is no longer a U.S. embassy in Kabul. That forces refugees to try to get help from the embassies of other countries like Pakistan, Albania, Iran, and Qatar. They must also have passports, which are often only available for ranking members of the Taliban.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, we report from the front lines in Ukraine as Russia's invasion nears the one-year mark. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Hillcrest's neighborhood sign is back and brighter than ever. The sign at the corner of 5th and University Avenue has new lights with color-changing technology. The Hillcrest Business Association raised more than $80,000 for the upgrades. The sign has been a neighborhood landmark since 1941. At Mesa College this morning, there was the unveiling of another symbol for the LGBTQ community. The Mesa College Pride Center is now open on campus. KPBS education reporter MG Perez has more on what it means for the community.
Enmeshed in the rainbows and symbols of pride, there are the stories of heartbreak and hardship told by members of the LGBTQ community who have survived and flourished.
Being gay was never discussed in families or religious institutions or, God forbid, in public.
Sadly, for most queer people, this journey is often done alone, without the help and support of family, friends, and their community.
But from the sadness comes celebration.
3, 2, 1.
The new Pride Center is now open here on the campus of Mesa College. The grand opening party today makes way for the business of creating a safe space for those who are very much out of the closet and those who are not.
You come in here and you can be your true self. Whether you're an ally, whether you're a part of the community, you deserve to be here. You deserve to be seen as your whole self.
The Pride Center is ready to offer academic, personal, and career counseling, an LGBTQ-affirming library of literature and authors, meeting places, and other gender and sexuality resources.
And we don't hide those things that have value and meaning to us. We put them out front and center, and we put them out so that everybody can see and so that everyone will know that this is a part of a community, a part of a village, that we see our students.
Planning for this Pride Center started in 2016, and then came the COVID shutdown, which actually inspired the location and some of the possible uses for this space. The building used to house classrooms and an art gallery and some offices. Distance learning and changes in post-pandemic curriculum allowed Mesa College to make room here for a repurposed mission of pride, offering new hope for members of the community who represent every color and texture of the rainbow. MG Perez, KPBS News.
Snow is falling in our mountains, prompting school closures in Julian, Spencer Valley, and Mountain Empire districts. A winter storm warning is in effect through Saturday. If you're thinking about heading up to the mountains, chains will be required. The California Highway Patrol is also reminding everyone to be extra careful driving on slippery or iced-over roads.
We're looking at a stormy weather pattern here this weekend. Weak atmospheric river sets up shop, but that will give us soaking rain, some strong winds, potential for flooding into the mountains. We'll be looking at some heavy snow. Here you can see the flood threat starting to increase Friday into Friday night, and that will continue right through Saturday. Up in the mountains, winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings, they're in effect right through Saturday, so travel not recommended in the high country this weekend. Tonight, some showers around, temperatures in the upper 40s in the metro. Temperatures will dip down to the upper 30s in Ramona, and will be in the low 20s, Mount Laguna, a little snow in the air there. Future satellite and radar does show us plenty of showers rotating down the coast coming into our area tonight and into tomorrow morning, and that blue up there in the high country represents some snow. Taking a look at tomorrow's temperatures, it's going to be a cool day. Have a nice warm jacket around because we won't get out of the mid-40s in Ramona, mid-50s in San Diego. Mount Laguna will stay into the mid-20s. And then this next storm drops down the coast, a cold storm, low snow levels. There's the potential for some pass closures with this one. Take a look at our snowfall forecast. Up in the high country, Mount Laguna could see 6 to 12 inches. Same is true around Idlewild. Heavier snows right went up towards Big Bear Lake. Could see a foot or more there. Here's the forecast. Coastal areas, cool and wet. Good soaking rain coming in here. Watch for flooding into the weekend. As we head into the interior, temperatures here will be quite cool. A downpour is expected by the weekend. And up in the mountains, we'll be looking at snow. Snow heavy at times. Travel certainly not recommended. And it'll be wet in the desert, too. Taking a look at the forecast here, you can see it'll be cool. Some heavy rain on Saturday. And for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
More than $100 million is up for grabs in tonight's Powerball lottery. That follows the announcement of a record $2 billion jackpot won by one lucky Southern California man just last week. KPBS education reporter MG Perez explains how lottery money also means a big win for public school students.
The sound of lottery tickets, printing numbers that could be the Powerball prize winner.
So get your tickets ready.
Here come tonight's winning numbers. Let's start things off this evening.
Between Powerball, Mega Millions, Super Lotto Plus, and those scratchers, altogether, the lottery has raised $41 billion to benefit public schools across the state. That includes K through 12 schools, community colleges, and public universities. 80 cents of every $2 Powerball or Mega Millions ticket you buy goes to just about every kind of education program. Alva Johnson is director of the California State Lottery.
These numbers represent promises kept since voters created the lottery in 1984 with the explicit purpose and intent to raise supplemental funding for public education. That's our mission.
It is lighting up. Yes, you did it.
Sarah Hillard is a science teacher at Millennial Tech Middle School in the Choice View neighborhood, a campus in the San Diego Unified District. Her specialty includes lessons in robotics and 3D printing. She's also an expert at finding funding and donations for all the extras she wants her students to have so they can learn and succeed.
We're appreciative for all the money the district gives us, all the money that we get from our site, all the money that we get from, concerned partners in the community. Nonprofits look to us and are just asking what can we do to help out. So we definitely appreciate the lottery money, but we appreciate money from all the different sources that it comes from.
I like to say lottery money for schools is bonus money.
Carolyn Becker is the California Lottery's Deputy Director of Public Affairs and Communications. Part of her job is to explain to the rest of us how lottery money benefits students.
We don't want people to think of the lottery as the savior for schools. As most people know, education funding is quite complex. They always need more. Again, we are here to raise supplemental funding, not replace those traditional dollars, and we're proud to do it.
Here's a battery. All right. How are we doing, ladies?
In Miss Hillard's class, that money could be used to buy extras like the LED lights and batteries her students are using in their Black History Month projects this week. They each chose a quote from a famous leader, athlete, or community activist, then carved it into a piece of acrylic and wired the base to light up their learning. 7th grader Jada Blackman is grateful for the extra resources.
I chose never be limited by other people's limited imagination, and the quote was made by Mae Jamerson, one of the first black astronauts.
Her classmate, Alana Lada, is thrilled to be in this science class.
We've made a bunch of 3D prints from our 3D printers. We've also made a bunch of custom DIY t-shirts and stuff, and it's pretty cool. And robots.
Lottery money not only pays for these extras, but also can be applied to pay salaries to retain quality teachers, like a special ed assistant. But it cannot be used for things like new school buildings. The money is distributed to districts based on attendance, supplementing with small amounts of funding that are flexible and valuable, says the Lottery Communications Director.
You're supporting public schools no matter whether you win or lose. So every ticket sold, every ticket played is a win, we like to say, for public education.
Sarah Hillard is a devoted educator and a player.
I do buy lottery tickets. I do buy lottery tickets. I've yet to hit big, but here's hoping.
And the power of the Powerball keeps rolling on. MG Perez, KPBS News.
UC San Diego researchers say that children who are less attracted to a parent's baby talk are more likely to have some form of autism. KPBS Sci-Tech reporter Thomas Fudge visited their lab.
Elliot is a 3-year-old boy who has been diagnosed with autism, a developmental problem related to language and social skills. His mom, Casey Kumpian, says they were not worried about his risk of autism, but he was diagnosed after being enrolled in an eye tracking study at UC San Diego around the age of 2.
So we can tell with extremely high precision, is the baby looking at social images or non-social images? How quickly are they moving their eyes?
Karen Pierce is the co-director of UCSD's Autism Center for Excellence. She says eye tracking can identify autism spectrum disorder very quickly and accurately.
Here comes the video.
Here it comes.
A child is given a choice of looking at, say, a video of car traffic or one of a woman speaking in baby talk.
You know, that like sing-songy, like, oh, sweetie, I love you, you're so adorable. Right, when you're around a baby, people have more emotional inflection. And when we show the video to kids on the spectrum, they might spend more time looking at the traffic. So remember when Elliot was watching it, he did shift his gaze over to the traffic for a little bit instead of on the mother.
Pierce is a co-author of a paper in the journal JAMA Network this month, describing a study where they tested 653 toddler-age kids. They found that if a toddler fixated on the baby talk video at or below 30% of the time while being eye-tracked, it had a 94% chance of being accurately identified with autism spectrum disorder. Campion says Elliot has gotten treatment that helps him play with other kids without getting frustrated. She says he's doing great, and as Elliot played in the background, she said parents should not think it's shameful if their child is diagnosed with autism.
And people can be totally normal members of society and have a great life.
The Centers for Disease Control estimate that by the age of 8, 1 in 44 U.S. children are found to be on the autism spectrum. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On NPR's Morning Edition, a look back at former President Jimmy Carter's legacy, how his energy policies that were criticized then laid the groundwork for addressing climate change now. And on KPBS Midday Edition, the Sheriff's Department won't ban maximum restraints, but it is changing training following a lawsuit. And of course, you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm John Carroll. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Previs Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.